My name is Amara Reed. I'm 33 years old, living and working as an attorney in Seattle. For over 3 decades, I believed I was an inseparable part of my family. Until that morning, when I received a message made up of just 11 words. We only want Thanksgiving with the Bryce family this year. Hope you understand. No invitation. Not even a seat at the table I'd helped set for years. And they had no idea I had quietly bought their ancestral home, with only my name on the deed. Have you ever been pushed aside by your own family, excluded from something you always believed you belonged to? If you've ever felt that, leave a comment below. And if you're interested in a story about freedom, about boundaries rebuilt with clarity, go ahead and like and follow this channel. Because right now, I'm about to tell you how being cast aside led to the warmest gathering I've ever hosted. I'm the eldest child in my family. That title, Big Sister, came with an invisible set of expectations no one had to say out loud. They didn't ask, but I understood my role. Don't be a burden. Don't fail. And never ask for anything. I learned how to clean the kitchen on my own at 8 years old because Mom was busy driving my younger brother Bryce to football practice. When Bryce got suspended for punching a kid in the bathroom, my mother cried the whole afternoon because her poor boy must be going through something. And me, at 13, quietly brought Bryce's assignments to the school office so he wouldn't miss his exams. Bryce was the kind of kid who got an entire wall of memories built around him in high school. Jersey-framed photos after dramatic wins. Me? I won the statewide speech championship in 11th grade and came home to my dad saying, "Good, but are you sure any of that's gonna help you make money?" Bryce got involved with drugs at 19. I was the first to find out. I was the one who called the police in the middle of the night after finding him passed out in the basement bedroom. My mother screamed in my face, "Why would you make it worse? He needs love, not handcuffs." He spent 3 months in rehab, came back to a cake and a hand-painted sign. "Welcome home, Bryce. We're proud of you." My parents threw a backyard party, invited neighbors, even his old coach. I stood off to the side. No one asked what I thought. My mother handed me a slice of cake and said, "You should smile, it's a happy day." I got into Yale at 17, no party. My mom quietly baked banana bread, placed it on the table, and said, "You don't like noise anyway, right?" Right. I didn't like noise, but I did like to be seen. I would have liked, just once, to have my father look me in the eyes and say, "Amara, I'm proud of you." The last time I saw him do that was for Bryce, after a generic podcast clip of his got 3,000 views on TikTok. I thought I was used to being the background character, until I got engaged. Christopher, my boyfriend at the time, was a design engineer in Portland. Quiet, kind, unflashy. But he loved me in a way I'd never been loved before. No conditions, no comparisons, no performance required. He proposed at a small cafe. Simple, private. I came home and told my mom. She paused for a few seconds, then said, "That date is Bryce's birthday, honey. I think you two should reschedule. We don't want him to feel left out." I remember laughing, a tight, joyless laugh. I said, "Mom, I can't believe you just said that." She gave a gentle smile. "You've always been so understanding." So I moved the date. Christopher didn't object, but I saw his expression falter. Mine did too. At the engagement party, Bryce showed up 2 hours late in a wrinkled t-shirt, brought a new girlfriend, and demanded to blast EDM in the backyard. My mother said, "He's fresh out of rehab. Let's give him a little space." Christopher looked at me again. This time, he didn't hide his disappointment. "I'm sorry," he said. "But why do I feel like a guest at my own party?" I didn't know what to say. Because I felt it too. After the guests had left, I was picking up the plastic cups scattered around the yard. My mother rocked in a chair, sipping her last glass of wine. She said softly, "You're lucky. Bryce has never had someone stick around like Christopher. I kept cleaning, my hands freezing, and that was the first time I realized I was the only child in this family who was never allowed a special day. Still, I played my part. I sent Bryce money for his podcast startup, never daring to ask too many questions for fear of sounding unsupportive. I called my mom weekly, shared work updates, checked on their health. And they always ended the call with the same line, "Oh, and don't forget to wish your brother a happy birthday." Until that year. Until the "take a break and relax" text. And I decided, this time, I wouldn't be background anymore. Last year, I brought my boyfriend home for Thanksgiving. Julian is a high school teacher. He teaches history at a public school near where I live. He's not the kind of man who turns heads at first sight. Not flashy, not dramatic. But he listens. And more than anything, he sees me. We met at a panel talk at the city library. Julian was the first person to ask me, "What about you? What kind of family did you grow up in?" I smiled faintly. "A normal one." He tilted his head, squinting like he could see what I wasn't saying, then smiled. "I don't think that's true, but if you want to start with normal, I'll keep listening." We'd been together nearly a year when I decided to invite him for Thanksgiving. I planned carefully, called ahead, even texted my mom directly. "Julian will be joining me. Hope this seating works out for both of us." She replied with one word. "Okay." We arrived early that day. I'd brought 2 bottles of Italian wine Julian had saved for weeks, and he brought dessert, Southern pecan pie from his grandmother's recipe. The door opened. My mom smiled politely. "Hi, sweetie. Oh, this must be your friend." I was about to introduce him, but she turned away mid-sentence. "You can set the wine by the fireplace. And please, keep it down. The kids are watching football." I looked into the living room. Bryce sat in the center like a king on his throne, remote in hand. Beside him was his new girlfriend, Alana, pink hair, oversized sweater that read feminist AF. I knew my mother would make a comment about it within the hour. Bryce didn't even stand. He glanced at Julian and gave a quick nod. "Yo." Julian, calm as always, smiled. "Nice to meet you." No one responded. At dinner, the worst part came. When I asked my mom about seats, she pointed to a side table by the window. "You two can sit here. The main table's full." I looked over. 2 empty chairs at the main table. I said quietly, "Mom, there are still..." "They're for the Daniels. Your father's friends. They'll be here soon." I didn't want Julian to see me upset, but he already had. "I don't mind," he whispered, resting his hand gently on my back. "As long as you're next to me." We ate next to a group of younger cousins fighting over mashed potatoes. Julian tried to make conversation, asked questions. No one asked about him, or about me, or us. During dessert, I gathered my courage. "I signed the contract for my first home last week," I told everyone. My dad raised an eyebrow. "Really?" 3-bedroom, up north in Seattle. Needs some fixing, but the location's great, near the park. Before I could say anything more, my mother cut in. "Did you hear? Bryce is planning a startup, a podcast about mental health recovery. So creative." All eyes shifted to my younger brother. Bryce shrugged. "Just giving it a shot. But seems like people are interested. We need to invest in some equipment." My dad asked immediately, "How much do you need?" I sat there, listening as the conversation shifted direction, like it always did. I looked down at my hands. The hands that had signed a mortgage, written scholarship essays, cared for my brother through withdrawal, and understood that what I did would never be enough to be the center of this household. After dinner, while I was washing dishes in the kitchen, Julian walked in, drying his hands on a towel. "You okay?" "Same as always." He looked at me for a long moment, then said softly, "Umara, I think you deserve a family where you don't have to shrink just to exist." I gave a tired smile. "That's why I brought you. I thought maybe I could show you something good." No, he interrupted. You don't have to prove anything to me. I just don't understand why you stay in a place that makes you feel small. We broke up a few weeks later, not because he didn't love me, but because I didn't have the strength to keep convincing him, or myself, that blood ties were worth every new crack they left in me. Julian left his final words folded on the kitchen table. You are the strongest woman I've ever met, but you don't have to be strong for people who make you shrink to fit inside their comfort. I folded the note, placed it in a drawer, then called my mom, like always. Asked how she was. Asked if Bryce was doing okay. Listened to her updates, ending as always with, "Oh, and remember to wish your brother a happy birthday." I always remembered, but around that time, I started forgetting how to forgive. It was a cold, clear November morning, with the sun rising over Seattle's gray sky. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed. A message from Mom popped up, with the little heart emoji she always added to the end of a hard sentence to say, "This is coming from love. This year we want to keep Thanksgiving simple. Just Bryce's family. Hope you understand." I stared at the message like it was written in a language I used to know but no longer recognized. I brought my mug out to the balcony and sat on the worn wooden chair Julian had left behind. The warmth in my hands wasn't enough to stop the cold from sinking into my chest. Other years, I would have called back, asked why, or tried to convince her to let me come. I had done that more than once. But this time, I opened my laptop. I typed a familiar string into the inbox search bar. Vermont property, title, inheritance, Amara Reed. Within seconds, the PDF file appeared. My eyes skimmed the header. Quick clamp deed, Lake Haven, Vermont, Amara R. Reed, reader's sole owner. I'd almost forgotten. Last year, after my grandfather passed, the family lawyers sent me the paperwork transferring ownership of the old winter house in Vermont. I was the only one he trusted to preserve his memories. My parents hadn't argued. They always said the place was too cold, too far, too snowy to bother with. I signed it, but never told anyone. I zoomed in on the map. The house nestled at the forest's edge, overlooking a lake that froze in winter. I still remembered the creaky wood stairs, the giant stone fireplace that once dwarfed me at 10 years old, and the attic room with the round window, where I used to hide and read when the rest of the family fought downstairs. The memories surged like a tide, but instead of drowning me, they lifted me, softly, clearly. I took a sip of lukewarm coffee. Then I replied, "I understand. Wishing you a warm Thanksgiving." Sent. I powered off the phone, set it on the wooden table, and opened a new tab. Plane tickets, cleaning services, furniture stores in Montpelier. I started making a list, organizing tasks, like I was preparing for a major trial, except this time the defendant was every old story I'd stubbornly clung to. I wrote a bold heading in my notebook. Thanksgiving at Haven House. Not to prove, but to exist. That afternoon, I met with Alex, my grandfather's former attorney, the one who handled the property transfer. His office was in an old stone building on Queen Anne Hill, its walls lined with framed certificates and faded black and white photos. "I need to confirm full rights to the Vermont property," I said, opening the file. He smiled. "Haven't moved in yet? Your grandfather thought you'd relocate right after law school." I think I needed one more slap in the face to remember who I am. Alex confirmed the documents were valid. No one could interfere. I could clean, renovate, rent. It was all mine. I thanked him, and when I stepped out of his office, I felt lighter, as if I'd left an invisible prison behind, one where I kept begging for tickets to a show I was never allowed to be part of. That evening, I made a simple dinner: pasta, red wine, and played my old cleaning day playlist. I scrolled through old Vermont photos, one of me at 9, building a snowman beside my grandfather, cheeks flushed, gap-toothed grin. No Bryce, no parents, just me and the only person who ever called me the stubborn little spark I didn't know I needed. And I thought, maybe this year I don't need to go home. Maybe I'll return to the place I was once clearly seen, even if only once. I opened Google Docs, created a new title. Guest list, Thanksgiving at Haven House. The first name I typed was Aunt Helen, Mom's younger sister, a retired elementary school teacher who used to wrap me in tight hugs whenever she saw me hiding in the corner at family gatherings. Next was my cousin Ethan, who once whispered after Bryce's birthday party, "If they're your family, you deserve more from them." I kept writing. My hand didn't stop, as if my body remembered every person who'd ever looked at me without the label Bryce's sister. And at the bottom of the list, I wrote one name that made my hand pause for a beat. Ellie. My niece. Bryce's daughter. She's 8. I didn't know if Bryce would let her come, but I knew a part of me still hoped, because if Ellie came, I could tell a child, "You're seen here, and no one's putting you at the kids' table." I looked up at the map of Vermont on the wall, a red pencil line stretching from Seattle to Haven House. The distance wasn't far, but maybe this would be the first time I was truly walking the other way. Not to hold on, but to begin again. The next morning, before the sun reached the bedroom window, I was already in the kitchen, holding a mug of hot tea, waiting for the phone to ring. It was my appointment with Attorney Harper, who had handled the Vermont property files since last year. "I want to activate the exclusivity clause," I said as soon as the call connected. There was a slight pause. "You mean transfer full rights?" "Yes, full rights. Remove all old permissions, including any false beliefs my parents might still be clinging to. I'll send the updated form. They were never legal co-owners, but the way they believe they are, that does need to be dealt with. Clearly." I knew that. My parents used to tell people the house belonged to the family. Meanwhile, I was the only name on the title, the one paying annual property taxes and hiring roof maintenance crews every winter. And still, I kept quiet, because I didn't want to stir up trouble. I don't need to keep quiet anymore. That same day, I sent the first message. "Aunt Helen, I'm hosting Thanksgiving at Haven House. I hope you can come. It'll be a meaningful gathering." Minutes later, she replied, "Oh my Lord. Finally. I'm coming. I'll bring your favorite pumpkin pie." I laughed, then called my cousin Ethan. We usually exchanged birthday texts, but never really sat down as adults. "Amara," he picked up, surprised. "I have a weird proposal. Thanksgiving with me, in Vermont. No parents involved, no seating hierarchy. Only people who want to be present, be seen, and feel no need to prove themselves." Ethan was quiet for a moment, then laughed. "You said exactly what I didn't know I'd been waiting to hear. Send the address." I kept going. Texted Monica, my best friend from college, the one who stayed with me the night Julian left. No questions, just tea and old movies. Thanksgiving in Vermont. I'm rebuilding a different kind of family. There's a place for you, if you're ready to go a little far to feel a little closer. Less than 30 minutes later, she sent a screenshot of her flight confirmation. Skipping dry turkey with the stepmother-in-law? I'm in. Finally, I opened another chat window. Little Ellie, 8 years old, Bryce's only child, and maybe the only person in my family who once called me secret superhero, after I secretly taught her to sound out words in the kitchen while the adults were yelling in the other room. I typed, "You'll be spending Thanksgiving at the old house by the lake. It has the attic room with the round window. Do you remember? I'm saving that room for you. If your mom agrees, I'd love to welcome both of you." I didn't expect much. Bryce and his ex-wife, Amanda, had been separated for 2 years. Their relationship wasn't easy, and I wasn't sure Amanda wanted anything to do with the Reed family anymore. But by afternoon, while I was folding tablecloths in the living room, my phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up, my heart tightening with nerves. Amara? It's Amanda. Her voice was soft, tired, but not distant. I know this might be a surprise, but Ellie got your message and she cried for nearly half an hour out of happiness. I don't want to get involved in your family's business, but I know my daughter. She feels safe around you. And after everything she's been through since Bryce's last meltdown, I think she needs a different kind of Thanksgiving. The attic already has wool blankets and a box of crayons, I replied. If she comes, I'll leave the light on all night. Amanda exhaled slowly. I'll bring her, and I'll stay too, if that's okay. It's more than okay. Amanda, thank you. No, Amara, she said quietly. I should be the one thanking you for not cutting the cord my daughter still needs. After the call, I sat silently on the sofa, looking at the guest list in front of me. None of them were people I ever expected to be my core. But reading through their names, Helen, Ethan, Monica, Amanda, Ellie, I felt something unfamiliar. Peace. No thrill, no expectation, only a quiet sense that, finally, I was moving the right way. And when I marked confirmed next to Ellie's name, I knew. I was about to create a gathering that needed no permission, only a heart wide enough to begin again, right where the memories once ended. I arrived at Haven House 3 days before Thanksgiving, carrying 2 large suitcases, a box of kitchen tools, and a folder of sketches to rework the bedroom layout. Snow hadn't fallen yet, but the air already smelled cold. The scent of dry wood and young pine in the wind made me feel like I was 10 again, running down the hallway trying to reach the lake before my mom forced me into a coat. I spent the first day checking the heating, clearing out the wood stove and covering the long table by the large window with a white cloth. I'd decided that would be the main table. No side tables, no extra chairs. Here, everyone would have a seat of their own. When Aunt Helen arrived, she hugged me like I'd just been rescued from someplace dark. Do you know what you've done? She whispered in my ear. I smirked. Probably disrupted the Reed family order. She pulled back, half joking, half serious. No. You're drawing a new map. And for the first time, you're at the center, not the margin. Ethan arrived next, bringing Oregon wine and a bag full of dried flowers, in case you want to make those vintage wreathed things. Annika showed up with boxes of homemade crackers, insisting on sleeping in the attic with Ellie, to draw up secret maps together. One by one, they came. One by one, stories opened up. People started sharing how stifling my family gatherings used to feel, where everything was managed like a family newsletter, headlined with what Bryce did, and everything else tucked beneath as minor updates. I used to think you were cold, Ethan admitted as we arranged flowers on the table, but now I get it. You just didn't want to elbow your way into getting a little attention. I tucked another sprig of lavender into the vase and murmured, when you've elbowed for too long without a turn, you learn how to go quiet. On Thanksgiving morning, the house was full of voices. Monica was showing Ellie how to fold napkins into swans. Aunt Helen was monitoring the stuffing, and I stood on the porch, mug of tea in hand, watching the snow begin to scatter over the lake. Then I saw a charcoal-colored SUV pull into the clearing in front of the yard. Unknown plate. I squinted. Amanda was already here. Ethan, too. Who else? The door opened. A man stepped out. Dark knit beanie, heavy coat, tall, broad shoulders. And heartbreakingly familiar. Dean. I stood still. My hands tightened around the mug. Time spun backward. We'd loved each other for 3 years. He was the only person who ever shouted at my father when he scoffed after I received the Young Lawyer Achievement Award. Because your daughter doesn't need your validation, right? Dean had said. Because she already knows she's good enough, quiet enough, obedient enough to never make a scene. They never liked him. They said he was too loose, too sharp. Not a match for Amara. And me, like always, I backed down. Because I didn't know how to be loved without making others uncomfortable. Dean stepped up to the porch. His eyes were the same, deep, steady, hard to read. I opened the door before he could knock. I didn't send you an invite, I said, trying to stay calm. I know, he said softly. Not from you. From Ellie. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Je mocht dire. Admira Jean Duchach. Handed it to me. I opened it, childish handwriting in crayon. Uncle Dean, I know you used to make Aunt Amara laugh. She laughs with me too, but I see her eyes are sad. If you're free, come to Vermont. Don't tell Dad. She needs someone next to her. I froze. My eyes burned. I wasn't going to come, he said slowly. But when an 8-year-old writes that, and you know she's right, you can't stay away. I folded the note, tucked it into my pocket. And what if you're here for yourself too? Dean shrugged, smiled faintly. I could say it's for Ellie, but really? I didn't know if I was still needed. I don't need much. Just someone who shows up without asking where I'll put them. Then I'll stand outside the door. When you need me, open it. I turned away, smiling. Don't stay out too long, it's almost stuffing tasting time. And fair warning, Aunt Helen doesn't play when it comes to salt. He stepped inside, bringing with him a rush of cold air and pine and snow. Everyone in the house turned to look at us. But there was no protest. No whispers. This house didn't need announcements to know who belonged. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to hide anyone. Not even someone who had once been a wound, and might now be part of the healing. By midday on Thanksgiving, Haven House smelled rich with browned butter, cinnamon waffles, and turkey roasting golden in the oven. Light poured through the glass windows into the kitchen, where Monica was dancing to old jazz while stirring cranberry sauce. Ellie was cutting out thank you cards to place on each dinner plate. I sat on the long window bench, peeling apples for the tart, listening to laughter coming from the living room. Ethan was telling the story of his first time ice skating on the frozen Vermont lake at 8 years old, and the house erupted with laughter over the way he described the fall that shattered both confidence and but. Dean sat by the fireplace, quietly listening, occasionally nodding or smiling when our eyes met. No one had to say anything grand. Presence, this time, was enough. And then, my phone buzzed. My mother's ringtone was a simple, low chime, long and drawn out. I'd kept it the same for years as a quiet reminder that talking to her always required preparation. I looked at the screen. 1, 2, then 3 missed calls. From Mom, from Dad, from Bryce's house. Then a string of texts from Aunt Helen. Amara, your mom is calling me, Ethan. Even Monica. They don't know who's there. I haven't answered yet. Monica noticed the shift in my expression and walked over. You okay? My mom found out. Monica frowned. What's she doing? For now, working her way down the guest list. I sighed and set the paring knife on the table. I'd been waiting for this moment. But that didn't make it easier. Then the phone rang again. I picked up and put it on speaker. The kitchen fell silent. Ma. Amara! Her voice was sharp. What are you doing? The whole family's gone. No one's home. No one's answering. I just saw photos people posted. Everyone is in Vermont? In that house? Yes. That's my house. What? No, that's your grandparents' house. It's the family house. And Grandpa left it to me. My name is on the deed. You know that. She hesitated. Then her voice turned sharper. You did this on purpose. This is control, manipulation. No, Mom. This is a boundary. A what? Not revenge. Protection. I didn't invite you because you made it clear you wanted Thanksgiving with Bryce's family. So this is mine. There was the sound of a chair scraping. Then my father's voice cut in, tense. Amara, this is your dad. You need to stop this childish behavior. Your mom is very upset. I didn't do anything to upset her, Dad. I just stopped waiting for an invitation I never should have had to ask for. You're tearing the family apart. I'm redefining what family means. At that moment, I saw Dean walk in from the living room. No questions, no judgment. He gently placed his hand on my shoulder, then reached down, took the phone from my hand, and said calmly, "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Reed? This is Dean. Yes, I'm here, and let me be clear. Amara is with her real family, the people who chose to be here, not out of duty, but because they love her. You said she's manipulating? No. This is the first time she isn't shrinking to be accepted, and if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why." His eyes weren't angry, certain, steady, like someone who had returned something I lost a long time ago, the right to exist without having to explain it. I stood up, went back into the kitchen. Dean was still there. Monica was still stirring the pot. Ethan called out from the other room, "Amara, someone needs to review the playlist. Ellie just requested Jingle Bell Rock. Change it. DJ privileges go to the little one today." Then I turned back to the table, picked up the knife, kept peeling apples. The next morning, when snow had covered the stone steps out front, I was sitting with Ellie sketching in a notebook when the doorbell rang. Long and dry. Monica leaned toward the window, glanced outside, then looked at me. "It's them." I stood up, placed a hand on Ellie's shoulder. "I'll be right back, Commander." The wooden gate opened, and standing there were my parents. Still proper, wearing earth-toned coats, leather gloves, and expressions more dazed than angry. But in that silvery cold, what froze me wasn't the chill. It was the surprise on their faces. They hadn't expected to see me there, composed, unshaken, ready. "Amara," my mother began, her voice stiff but trying to sound calm. "We need to talk. Privately." I opened the door, gestured them in without a word. I led them to the study, the only room I hadn't let anyone sleep in, still holding my grandfather's old desk. When the door closed, my father turned slowly, scanning the room like he was searching for something he used to own. But this room no longer belonged to Silent Power. It belonged to me. "You've turned Thanksgiving into a division," my mother said, remaining standing. "We were left out." I quietly pulled a folder from the filing cabinet and placed it on the desk, sliding it toward them. "Havant House. Legally certified deed, my name. No co-signers beyond Grandpa. No shared clauses, no joint ownership. Just Amara R. Reed." "You really want to humiliate us like this?" my father asked. "No, I don't want to be hidden anymore." My mother sat down, her shoulders slumping like someone had just landed a blow no one else could see. "I didn't do this to get revenge, but for 30 years I've always had to wonder, am I good enough today to be noticed? When I got into Yale, you said, you don't need to go that far. When I got engaged, Mom postponed the party because it was Bryce's birthday. When I bought a house, you changed the subject to Bryce's podcast. Last year, when I brought Julian, you seated me with the kids. I supported myself, helped my brother pay off his student loans, supported Ellie when her father was unemployed. But not once, not ever, did either of you ask, are you tired? Just then, my phone rang. I picked it up. The screen read, Bryce. I let out a faint smile and swiped. Excuse me. I stepped outside the study door, still within earshot. Hey there. Amara, listen, I know yesterday was tense, but I've got this idea for a new podcast project. This time it's serious. No more personal backstory. I'm shifting to a theme about social recovery, like overcoming family expectations, toxic comparisons. You get it, right? I almost laughed. Sounds familiar. Who's producing it? Let him? I'm looking for a partner. Was wondering if you could... It is? Not exactly. Collaborate. Use your name to attract investors. Maybe include your name on part of the licensing. I looked toward the study door. My mother was staring at me, her mouth slightly open as if she wanted to object but couldn't find the words. I lowered my voice. Do you know how long it took me to separate from the name Reed? I used it to knock on every door, only to have them slam shut because they remembered old headlines about a promising athlete arrested for substance abuse at 23. He went silent. I'll help, I said calmly. On one condition. What is it? You use your real name. Not Bryce Reed, son of a prominent attorney. Not Haven family legacy. Just Bryce. A man trying to start over. On the other end, a long exhale. Like snow melting. Uruya. Okay, he said at last. I'll try. I hung up and walked back in. My mother stood up. You still help your brother? Because I don't want him to walk the same path again. But this time, he won't drag me with him. My father stepped forward, voice low and strained. You've changed. No. I stopped trying to please people who never intended to see me. Later that afternoon, after dinner was over and people had begun clearing dishes, Ellie ran up to me, both hands behind her back. Her cheeks were still rosy from playing outside, her hair dotted with bits of dry grass. Aunt Amara, she said, eyes glowing. I have a gift for you. I knelt down, smiling. What's the occasion? My birthday already passed, remember? Ellie pulled out a folded sheet of paper, carefully opened it, and handed it to me with both hands. I took it. A crayon drawing of a wooden house, with smoke rising from the chimney, surrounded by people smiling. I recognized Monica, Aunt Helen, Ethan, Dean, and Amanda. In the center, a woman with long brown hair hugging a little girl. At the bottom, in wobbly black letters, My Real Thanksgiving. I froze. No grandparents. No Ellie's parents. You drew this yourself? I asked softly, still looking at the page. I think this is what Thanksgiving really means. No yelling, no comparing. Everyone's smiling for real. I gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Thank you, sweetheart. This is the best gift I've ever received. Dean stood in the doorway to the living room, still holding a cup of hot coffee. When our eyes met, he stepped closer. Slow, gentle, as if afraid to disturb something fragile. You know, Dean began, voice low, I used to think you didn't need anyone. I tilted my head slightly, not fully understanding. The way you live, the way you pull back when you're hurt. I thought it was strength. But today, he paused, then continued. I see now it was waiting. You were just waiting for someone willing to stay. I didn't know what to say. Because that sentence hit exactly where it used to break. Dean smiled. I never left, Amara. I just didn't know if you wanted me to stay still. I looked out the window. A thin layer of snow had settled on the railing, reflecting the warm light from the kitchen. In the distance, Monica was placing the apple tart on the table. Ethan was joking with Ellie in a goofy voice that made her laugh uncontrollably. Aunt Helen was folding napkins, her hands swift, her eyes gentle. Ethan stepped closer, hands in his pockets, slightly awkward. I have something to say. For a long time, I thought you were cold. The kind of person who pulled away from the crowd because she thought she was better than the rest. I pressed my lips together. I had heard those words before, from relatives, even from my mother. But turns out, he exhaled deeply, we were all believing a story that had been told and retold for years. A story where you were the one who was already enough, and the rest of us were the ones who needed care. I'm sorry, Amara. For never taking the time to learn who you really were. For staying quiet when I saw you being treated unfairly. I know that doesn't undo anything. But I'd like to start again. You weren't the only one who believed that story. I used to believe it too. Ethan gave a quiet, bittersweet smile. Then, let's write the next chapter differently. I returned to the dining table and tucked Ellie's drawing into the candle holder, an unexpected, perfect decoration. Aunt Helen stepped closer, placed her hand on mine, her palm dry and warm. "Ah, next year," she said softly. "We'll come back here again, won't we?" I looked up, met her eyes. Kind, never pressing, only waiting. I nodded slowly. "Not because I'm the host," I said, "but because I want everyone to be here." She gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "For the first time, you're not the one carrying everyone else. You're the one being chosen." I didn't respond, but something eased in my chest, like shoulders that had been bracing for 30 years, finally allowed to let go. No longer holding the family together. No longer clinging out of silent loyalty. All I had to do was open the door and let the ones who truly wanted to stay step in. That evening, after a cozy dinner and a few refills of Monica's tart, the group gathered in the living room, where the stone fireplace burned brightly, the flames flickering up the dark wood ceiling, casting shadows more alive than any photograph I'd ever taken. Aunt Helen spread out a thick wool blanket on the floor, joking that it was the honor seat for anyone brave enough to speak the truth. Monica popped open another bottle of red grape wine. Ethan held Ellie in his lap, and I leaned back against a cushion beside Dean, the space between us no longer tense. "Truth or thanks?" Ethan proposed, still in his usual half-playful tone. "Simple rules. Each person either shares a truth they've never said, or thanks someone for something they've never expressed." Aunt Helen clapped lightly. "Good idea, but no dodging with vague things like thanks for the mashed potatoes." Everyone laughed. The game began with Amanda, who quietly thanked me for giving Ellie a new picture of what family can be. Then Monica confessed that when she first met me in college, she thought I was too uptight to ever eat $2 burritos with the group. Ethan thanked Ellie for breaking the ice at the beginning with her line, "Uncle Ethan tells stories like cartoons." Dean skipped the thanks and chose truth. He sat up straight, hands resting on his knees, eyes steady as he looked at me. "Truth. Years ago, I let you go, not because I didn't love you, but because I didn't think I was good enough to stay." I didn't look away, didn't flinch. Because what he said I had already known, but hearing it spoken aloud, in front of everyone, felt like confirmation that I wasn't the only one who had stayed silent out of fear of being left behind. Then all eyes turned to me. I was the last. I took a deep breath, my gaze resting on the fire as it crackled into red embers. "I didn't do this to get revenge," I said, my voice steady and low, just loud enough for everyone to hear. "Not to hurt my parents, not to prove anything to them. I did it because I no longer want to ask permission to exist." I paused, then continued. "I spent my youth trying to be the easy daughter, the understanding sister, the decent girlfriend. But in all those roles, no one ever asked me if I wanted to be any of them. And now I know. I do want something, but not just any seat, not just any roof. I want to stay where I don't have to strain to be seen." Ellie scooted closer, rested her head on my leg. I laid my hand gently on her soft hair, stroking it. Across from us, Monica wiped her eyes. Ethan sat quietly, thoughtful. Dean said nothing. He simply reached out his hand. Gentle, unhurried. The gesture didn't need words. It was an invitation to cross a boundary I had once built for protection. I looked at that hand, then placed mine in his. His palm was warm, not just from the fire, but because, for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to hold on tight to keep someone from slipping away. No one else in the room spoke. They simply stayed, sharing that space with me, as if we'd all silently agreed on something that didn't need to be spoken aloud. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall. Thick, quiet flakes blanketing the roof, the path, the years I had walked alone. And in that fire-lit, silent room, I was no longer the one holding the reunion together. I was the one being held, just for being me. Have you ever felt like you needed permission to exist in your own family? Amara didn't fight, didn't seek revenge. She simply let go of what once held her back and created a space where belonging wasn't inherited, but chosen. If you've ever been left off the guest list, ever been the name forgotten at the table, ever felt like love had to be earned by doing everything right, you're not alone. Real family isn't the place you strain to be accepted. It's where you can exhale and still be welcomed. What about you? Have you ever chosen your own table? Share your story in the comments. And if you want more heartfelt, honest, and deeply human stories about life, relationships, and rising from loss, don't forget to follow the channel. There are still so many stories waiting to meet your heart.